Rogers Show, starring Roy Rogers, King of the Cowboys, Trigger, his Golden Palomino, and Dale Evans, Queen of the West, with Pat Brady, his comical sidekick, and Roy's wonder dog, Bullet. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you till we meet again.
This is David Navara from the Czech Republic. A little bit about David. Quite a great player, rated 2706. You want to pause the video and read about David? This is the other player in the match in Czechoslovakia. This is Grandmaster Karl Nakamura, number 3 in the world. Here's a little bit about Karl if you want to pause the video. My buddy from the United States, Karl Nakamura. Alright folks, John Cordisco back again. Round 3 of the match between David Navara and Karl Nakamura in Prague in the Czech Republic. David is from the Czech Republic, and Karl Nakamura, my buddy, is from the United States. I believe he's number 5 in the world now, Karl. Anyway, this is round 3 of their 4-game match. David Navara is white, Karl Nakamura is black. And what else? King's Indian. Gotta love a Karl. Go through the moves a little bit. We've all seen the King's Indian a million times. Pawn push, A5, Bishop G5. Got the Fritz computer on off screen. It's basically an even game. Knight to A6, all theory. This one, I'm a little surprised. I'm looking at the computer here. White goes knight to D2, and Bishop D3, Queen D2. I think Bishop D3 just to get the bishop developed, but this must be some kind of line that Navara cooked up. Queen to E8 to stop the pin. Let me get the queen out in the open. Bishop E2. Knight D7. Black's a little cramped. This always happens in the King's Indian. Always. A3. Yeah, the suggestion maybe knight to B3 instead, since you were going to move the knight around, and then this knight would move up. After A3, F6, typical King's Indian. You'll see the F pawn a lot. Come to F5 when pawn takes, pawn takes. You see that a lot in the King's Indian. Bishop comes back. Knight to B6. Here comes all the action on the queen side so far. And B3 to reinforce the C4 pawn. It also prevents the knight from coming into A4 here, forcing the trade, and the queen would retake. Bishop H6. Being around that bishop is blundered right here with these two pawns, I think that's a good spot for the bishop. Rook to B1. One thing you got to do is all your pieces have to be doing something. Even if it's something minor, they all have to be useful at something. And a lot of the beginner players, when you move a piece and put it somewhere, I ask them, why did you do that? And they go, I don't know. Even a lousy reason or a bad plan is better than no reason and no plan at all. Knight to C5. Castles. F5. Here comes finally the F5, which is the mark of the King's Indian. B4. White just ignores it. A takes, knight takes. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes, pawn takes. Still, that's okay for black. Even though black's up a pawn in that scenario, white's got a small advantage. After knight takes, not as good as the other knight. Reason being that after f takes, knight takes, bishop f5. After knight takes, pawn takes, c5, D takes, B takes, knight to A4, hitting the pawn on C5, forcing the trade. Queen takes A4. If rook had taken A4 instead, bishop there. Oops. Rook. And that's real bad. Real bad for black. Queen takes A4. Bishop E7. Rook to F7. Pawn. C takes. C takes. This is a very interesting position. Now right now, David's got a Navara as white has an advantage, 3/4 of a pawn, and that isn't much, but they say that because black's up a pawn. When you're down a pawn and you still have a small advantage, that means you have a good position. Bishop E6. Queen takes, rook takes, rook takes. Now the material is back even again. Look at that D-pawn. Wow, wow, wow. On the 6th rank. Well, I don't know. What's Carl going to do here? This is interesting. And looking at the computer, now that the material is even, it's almost a point advantage for white. Bishop F8. Rook F to B1. Rook A2. There's a steal. Bishop takes. King takes. Rook. Rook takes. Rook takes. Let's reassess this here. I think Carl has done well for himself, considering that D-pawn was so dangerous. Rook A7. When try to maneuver around to A4, then get behind the pawn at D4. King H2. Rook A4. Rook B5. And now Carl's got the rook right where he wants him. And not only is he going after the D-pawn, he's also on a light square so the bishop can't harass him. Rook takes. King F7. Bishop G4. Bishop takes. Rook E7 check. King F6. H takes. Rook takes. And that's pretty much a drawn game here, even though the pawns are a little chopped up on black's side. Let's go through it here. Rook takes. Rook D5. F4. H5 by Carl. King up. H takes. King takes. You notice by doing that, of course, these pawns are now still connected. But this is dead drawn. G3. Rook. Rook. Rook B5. King H4. As Carl says all the time, all rook endings are drawn. They're not, but pretty close. And the computer bears that out, 0.00. King. Rook. Rook A6. King F7. Rook D6. Rook C5. King F3. G5. And King E4. And that's what they called it quits. I think Carl was a little bit of trouble in that game. Not a lot, but it might have been a little uncomfortable there for a while. Tough to play. We got through it, and that's a draw. Now this is game 3 of the 4-game match. Carl won the first 2 games with some neat tactics. In this game, he was a little uncomfortable, and he managed to draw it. So that's 2.5 out of 3 for Carl. Game 4 will be coming up shortly in this 4-game match. I will say this, I'm a little disappointed that Carl's not in Norway, playing in Norway chess, but they scheduled at the same time. He probably had a commitment here. Anyway, folks, just want you to remember that if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.
Gunsmoke, starring James Arness as Matt Dillon.